Hello and welcome to today's webinar, which is being recorded. Today we're going to be talking about interventions, your pre-discussion and discussion tasks. I am Amy Siegel and I'm the Vice President here at ASA.
And I'm Tina Weisman and I do strategic planning.
And we are going to just go ahead and get these cameras turned off and jump right in. Here's our vision to action process review, and it just reminds us where we've been. We started by creating an organizational structure, then we created a vision and looked at vision data. We collected and examined our current data, and comparing those two, we came up with our goals. After goals, we examined our root cause data and found things that were getting in the way of achievement. And today we start work on interventions. And Tina's going to talk a lot about what those interventions are. But just as a reminder, in our vision to action process, each step builds on the one before it. So it's very important to work in order. And because of that, Tina sends out reminders. They are friendly reminders, and they're meant to help you make sure you're getting the steps done beforehand so you can start the work that's ahead of you. Okay, this month, things heat up for our intervention development person. It's time for intervention development point person to step up and to facilitate the selection, development, and online entry of the interventions. The council discussion and council consensus point people are well placed to assist in this. So we encourage you all to work together this month to get this work done.
And here is our agenda for today. We're going to be talking about, and of course this is VTA, or vision process. Vision to Action, Section 6 for May. And first is, what are the interventions and exactly what are they? I know everyone has their own idea of what an intervention is, but this is from the Vision to Action process, the definition. Pre-discussion tasks, how you will prepare for the discussion individually, and then the actual discussion itself. So we'll walk through each one of those steps. So first of all, we're going to talk about what exactly are interventions. The interventions are practices that eliminate the root causes and improve achievement. So here, they're your answers to what's going on with your root causes. So interventions will apply very practical methods to aid the students in reaching their SMART goals. The interventions can be two different kinds. They can be general, which can impact a general root cause. Remember, you had some general and specific root causes. Or it can be a very specific intervention to impact a specific root cause. So some examples of a general root cause that you might have is that you put an intervention in place of a new attendance policy if attendance is a problem. There might be a lack of student engagement that came out of your discussions, and so you're going to have a workshop on that. Or there might be a problem with kids not getting extra time, extra help is needed, so you might implement an after-school tutoring program. It can also be very specific. And so this could be, like, for example, in math, it might be something about a series of lessons on ratios, because it seems to be the one area when you go back to SMART goals, you just can't get over the hump. That becomes a problem. Here's your solution. And then it could also be differentiated instruction on math, or even a math tutoring program. So you can, sky's the limit on this. It needs to be exactly what you need.
Remember when we talked about vision, we had read this quote from Joel Barker: "Vision without action is but a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. Vision with action can change the world." So we are getting into that action. We have our vision, and now it's time to plan for our action. And plan we do. As we get into this, you'll notice that we are going to get into some detailed plans for next year. And that is because the best interventions are a waste of time if they're not fully implemented with integrity. And so in addition to selecting good interventions, we are going to talk at length about how those will be implemented, and with integrity.
So now we're in part 2, and we're going to go over the pre-discussion tasks. And the very first and most important thing to remember and to check on is, have your root causes met criteria? And this is under section 5, step 8. If they have not yet met criteria, don't start the discussion until it has met criteria. And the reason for that is the root causes have to be properly in place. Because if you're kind of off on a tangent with the root cause, your interventions aren't going to make sense and they're not going to work as well. So make sure that I've seen your root causes, they meet criteria, and then start that discussion. Your pre-discussion tasks are as follows, and you can see once the root causes have met criteria, you're going to distribute the following to all the steering team members. And here again, Amy has nicely linked that up in the manual. Now I'm sure she'll pop on that here a little bit later when she does her online presentation. But you're going to have a root cause report. Remember the root causes report, intervention research charts, and each steering member will need 1 copy for each root cause. You're going to have intervention research resources links and any other research resources at your disposal. So you can see that this is not just a shot in the dark. This is not just, well, let's throw this out there and see if it works. This is based on a great deal of your own personal research that's going on in your building. And so now you're going to just keep using all that research, put it together, because we want you to succeed and we want you to do it and get some good results pretty much right away. And this is the way that we have found over the years that it works best.
Indeed. So once you have printed and distributed those reports and resources, we're going to prepare for the discussion individually. And this just gives everybody time to look through it all and to think and give it their best, attention. So to prepare for the discussion individually, first you're going to consider the root causes. That was one of the reports that will be distributed to all the steering team members. And then research possible interventions to address each root cause. So there are a set of links in the manual, and then any other resources at your disposal. The links that we have are to the SI2 school-based interventions. Those are interventions that other schools in SI2 have developed over the years. You might find something in there that addresses one of your root causes. We also have a database and a link provided to the College Success Network. These are community-based interventions. The College Success Network, I think that ended in 2015. So some of these have been defunct for a while, but there were still so many good ideas. And we've had a lot of schools take inspiration from the interventions in the database. And it's a good way to get your community involved in supporting your interventions at school. We also have the ASA Conference on Learning session descriptions. And again, these sessions happened a few years ago, but there's still some great ideas in there, and it might even inspire you. It may not be something that works perfectly for your school, but it could be something that that can be adapted and updated for your needs. And then always Google. Google is such a great resource, and you can find things from all over the world, really, that schools have done to address root causes. So, and then you're also going to, when you're preparing for discussion individually, you're going to record your research on the intervention research chart, and you'll need one of these for each root cause. And here's what that looks like. The intervention research chart, at the top, you're going to list the root cause that you're researching, and then you want to put in the data from that root cause. What was the evidence for that root cause? And that really just helps you make sure that you're being specific with what it is you're targeting in that root cause. So then for each root cause, as you find interventions that might address that, you can put in the intervention name and just something descriptive. We find that it's good to be short and descriptive. Um, yeah, brevity is your friend here, but you also want to make sure that it's not cryptic. So make sure that it's a good descriptive name. And then and just a brief intervention description. Who implements the intervention? What are they doing? Who participates? And how often does it occur? So just jot the basics of that. And then your intervention data. What data led you to believe this is an effective intervention? I know a lot of times if as people are doing research, they'll print things out when they're doing research on the internet, and that's a great thing. You could, if you've got some materials that you want to attach to this, it's great to have those handy if it becomes one of the interventions that you're going to implement. It's good to have more information at the ready. So I encourage you to do that. It's knowing me, I'd probably create a 3-ring binder, but whatever works best for you, just kind of keep track of where you got that idea in case you need to go back and find that.
And now you have everything in place, so now it's time to actually have the discussion. So for your steering team discussion, everybody is going to bring in your individual research sheets that Amy was just talking about. And then the council discussion point person should have one Instagraph poster for each root cause, plus one for each general intervention. And you can download those from the manual. Tape that won't take off the paint. We try to be practical here. And sticky dots. And through my Sunday school class, I have learned the wonders of tacky, sticky tack stuff, because that's paint business is a big deal there too. So sticky tack works real well too. One good hint here is if you can get those printed poster size, you're going to really be glad, because the posters definitely help with the discussion. And you know, we all like graphic organizers, and the bigger the better. So if you can get those printed poster size, that would be a good thing.
Here's what the Instagraph looks like. And again, you know, this is a consensus tool. It helps us see very concretely where we have consensus and what we need to talk about. So at the top, we're going to check, is this for all of our root causes? Are we looking at general interventions, or is this for a specific root cause? And then we're going to list that specific root cause. Over on the left-hand side, during your meeting, you're going to fill in possible interventions. So in this case, we have math buddies, after-school math tutoring, looping, math study hall, parent partners, math strand. And then I'm going to go to the next slide to talk about the method for this. So one person acts as the scribe, writing in the possible interventions identified by each steering team member. Once all possible interventions have been added and the Instagraph posters are all hanging up, the voting begins. And so each steering team member will have 3 votes represented by sticky dots per Instagraph. And then the votes can be used on, you can use them on 3 different interventions. You can split between 2 interventions, or all 3 can be used on 1 intervention. So just to be clear, it's 3 sticky dots per poster. So if we've got 9 root causes, we're going to look at, we'll have 27 sticky dots per person. Okay, and so then you have your voting.
On your post-voting discussion, what you want to do is consider the possible interventions with the most votes. And you'll notice back on that graphic that, you know, feel free, if you feel really strongly about something, vote for it more than once, because you may have had some success in your classroom doing that or whatever. So, you know, really vote your heart and your, you know, your what you've done with your own experience on these. Does the team have consensus on the interventions to address each root cause? And it does seem that one will usually just kind of work its way to the top. So it's kind of interesting to see how even the conversations that you don't have beforehand, you're really probably going to be more in agreement already than you ever realized. Do you have the resources to implement all of these interventions with integrity, or do we need to prioritize? And so there again, I've always kind of gone with the idea that, operate like you don't have two dimes to rub together. So just, don't put a price tag on it immediately as far as money, but do keep the practicality of it, that if there's money that needs to be involved, then don't hide that for now, because it'll just be a big letdown later. So, have that conversation too, those little sidebars. Plan how your team's going to develop the intervention components, and that's going to be the next section. And then for each intervention that will be implemented next year. So this is all working, it's all coming together now. So you're doing your post-voting, you're having those discussions, you're getting all this talk around, and now you're actually going to get it, putting the plan into place.
So now we're going to look at the online system and see how this all comes together. So as I mentioned before, we're in section 6 in May, and we're preparing for the individual steering team meeting, and the tools are in our manual. When we click on that, we are taken right to the manual and we see interventions. The webinar slides for this webinar are linked in the first step here. And then I've noted that these are for the individual prep. So you have your root cause report, your intervention research chart, and then the intervention research resources. Let me open that up. So what you'll need to do is make sure that everybody has all of these links. And you might want to just copy and paste those into an email. The root causes report is just the report you created last time or last month, and your intervention research chart. Oh, that is a download. So that just downloaded to my computer. And remember that you're going to need to print multiples of those. Everyone will need one intervention research chart for each of your root causes, plus one for general root causes. We also have a couple of documents that we want you to keep in mind. This is the external expectations document, and that just goes over things like Indiana rules and regulations, Title I if you're a Title I school, and just kind of reminds you of those interventions that you're kind of required to have. So it could be that some of the interventions you come up with meet those external expectations. It could also be that you need to throw in some interventions to make sure you've met all of your outside requirements. And then we're going to do another video for the next part of this, and we're calling that post-discussion tasks. So that'll be the webinar slides for the next video. So that's your manual. Okay, then you're going to have your steering team discussion, and oh, I'm sorry, I think I didn't mention the interventions Instagraph. Yeah, so the interventions Instagraph, of course, is for your point person to get those printed out, hopefully poster size. Again, that's just a Word document that you download, and then you can print that out, take it to Kinko's or wherever you get your posters printed, and get those ready for your meeting. Okay, so step 4 is conducting the actual discussion, and then step 5, just like what we always do, is entering the steering team discussion summary. I want to note on here that we do have post-discussions tasks, and that'll be the next video that we do. We'll be detailing how all of this works. But notice that none of these tasks are available until your steering team discussion summary meets criteria. So this is one of those things where we want to make sure that nobody's working ahead. You have to have that discussion, and you have to decide on what those interventions are going to be together before you can move on. That's it for the online system for this first section in your interventions section.
So now we're on to the next steps. So you're going to decide when the steering team will watch the post-discussion task video, and then you'll enter and submit the steering team discussion summary. Be sure to include a summary of the discussion of the process for selecting the interventions and the decisions made in number 1. And then your timeline, of course, you're going to have May for the actual interventions, and then May and June preparation. And don't count on the end of June. Count on trying to get this done the earlier part of June, because that way you can see that you do need to be included on the list ASA sends to the DOE on June 15th. And me looking at those on June 14th is not going to be good for you or either one. So try to get those in as early as you can, and that way I won't have to drive you crazy, because we'll be on top of it until it's done and done the way that we know it's good for everybody's SIP. So here again, very important to keep that timeline in order to write a well-considered and a strong SIP. We want you to do well, and what we've seen so far looks good. Just keep up that good work. Keep your head down. Keep going. It's looking good so far, and you're going to be really happy with it once you get finished. And you're going to have a good school improvement plan. You want to allow all the steering team members to have a voice. If somebody can't make the meeting physically, give your input. Just give it to another steering team member, and so that you are there at least in that you have a voice. And then there again, remember that we do send our list of the ones that have fulfilled all the requirements for an SIP. We do send that to the DOE on June 15th. And there again, if you've fallen behind, call me. Let's make a plan to get you caught up. This time of year, I understand everything's going on, and kind of the same here. So if we need to work little odd hours or something, we'll just do it. So make sure that you get all this done. And also, if we do receive word that the DOE makes that date any earlier, we'll be sure and contact you as soon as humanly possible. But it's been that date for a long time, so I figure it'll probably stay there.
Always, always, always get in touch when you need help. Don't forget the 5-minute, or if this time of year, I think it's more appropriate, the 5-second rule. Tina is available by email, and I know she checks her email pretty frequently. So that's always a great way to get a hold of her. And this is a great time of year if you all need to schedule a time to talk. I can't tell you how much that helps so many of our teams to get in touch and talk things through. So don't forget, get in touch.
And just there again, just as a reminder, a phone message I know can be frustrating because I am here a lot, that I may be talking to somebody else, and sometimes it's a little hard to get back in touch with somebody. So this time of year, if you can send me a really detailed email, I think I can get back with you a lot quicker. And we can also have that discussion thread going, which I like to go back and look at, so that I can kind of help remember, and I can kind of go back and look at your plan and everything else. So I know some people don't like using email that well, but it does really work better than a phone call this time of year. But if you want to be, if you want to call, by all means do that too. But first line of defense, email, second, the phone.
All right. You all are doing great work, and we can't wait to see how this plan comes together. Thanks so much for watching our video.
Keep up the good work.